early December 1805, the armies of three emperors faced off against one another. Napoleon was one of them, and his force of 70,000 was outnumbered by the 95,000-strong army of Tsar Alexander and Kaiser Francis. But Napoleon, a master of deception, had set a trap for the Austro-Russian army. Despite having the high ground on the Pratzen Plateau, he decided to withdraw to lure his allies into attacking. As he wrote later, he knew he could win an ordinary battle by staying on the high ground, but he wanted more than an ordinary victory. He then pretended to begin peace negotiations, sending proposals to Alexander I, which were refused, just like he wanted. After that, the Tsar got the impression that the French army was weakened and unprepared. The battle was part of the War of the Third Coalition, where Britain, Austria, Russia, and other powers aimed to contain Napoleon's expanding French Empire. So a victory over the Austro-Russians was crucial for Napoleon's European ambitions. With winter approaching, delaying the conflict risked reinforcements for the coalition and the possibility of an attack, which Napoleon feared. When the Allies reached the heights of Pratzen, overlooking the Goldbach Valley, they saw Napoleon posted only one weak division along the lower portions of the brook, around the little villages of Sokolnitz and Telnitz, down towards the frozen ponds of Sachsen and Menitz. The Russians and Austrians sent a large part of their army to try to overwhelm this weak right flank, while the rest of their army attacked down the road towards Brünn. In this way, they would expect to crush the French army between two portions of their army. But it was a trap. As the Russians descended from the heights of Pratzen in heavy fog, the French emerged from hidden trenches and houses, opening fire. The Russian columns hesitated and spread out, searching for good crossing points. Russian cannons pounded French positions on the western slopes, while the French artillery targeted the Russian troops crossing the brook. By now, the Austrians and Russians at the front of the left wing had crossed Goldbach Brook. Artillery and musket fire from the French right flank intensified. Outnumbered nearly 4-1, the French division was forced to retreat as the Russians advanced steadily from the crossings at Telnitz. At about 8:45, fresh troops arrived on the French right. Marshal Davout's division had arrived. They charged into the left flank of the Russian line, causing the Russians to recoil and many to retreat across the brook. Davout quickly deployed his troops, took command of the French right wing, in order to counterattack across the entire line. Davout's arrival and the French counterattack briefly dismayed the Russians, but they quickly recovered. The Russians doggedly advanced back across the brook. Realizing he was still outnumbered, Davout pulled his men back to the high ground west of Goldbach Brook, where he held on with grim determination, following Napoleon's instructions. By this time, the fog had lifted, and the Emperor could see into the valley. He raised his telescope and saw the opportunity he was waiting for. With the Allied army's wings engaged in attacking his flanks, their center near Pratzen was stretched thin. Napoleon planned to strike a powerful blow to smash through this weakened center, allowing his troops to defeat the separated portions of the Allied army, one at a time. Napoleon quietly ordered Marshal Soult to begin the attack. The two divisions swept across the brook and up the heights of Pratzen, smashing into unsuspecting Russian and Austrian columns. Some startled Allied battalions broke and fled. The Russians sent reserves to protect the high ground, but Soult and his commander sent more battalions up the slopes in a new assault wave. Slowly but steadily, the French pushed the Allied center back through Pratzen. At the same time, Bernadotte's division advanced past Napoleon's headquarters into fields targeting the north flank. French troops initially met no opposition. However, the Russians' Imperial Guard soon engaged them near Blazowitz, and the Austrian cavalry attacked Bernadotte's left flank. Napoleon ordered Murat to advance to protect Bernadotte, resulting in a fierce cavalry battle around Blazowitz. When Napoleon sent Soult to attack Pratzen, it was like aiming an arrow at the bullseye of the Allied line. Soult advanced with great force, but Napoleon saw that the main attack might fail if Bernadotte and Murat couldn't hold off fierce Allied counterattacks north of Pratzen. Napoleon moved there himself to observe this critical fight. Recognized by the French soldiers behind Ribaud's division on Bernadotte's left, word of the Emperor's presence spread, inspiring them to intensify their attacks and secure Blazowitz by 10 o'clock. But the Russians were not easily defeated. The Russian Imperial Guard reformed and counterattacked. Napoleon sent Brigadier General Jean Rapp to lead a cavalry brigade of his own guards in support of the hard-pressed Russian division. The wildest and most intense fighting of the day erupted briefly around Blazowitz. The Russian Guard's finest cavalry regiments, led by Prince Repnin, charged recklessly against Rapp's veteran horsemen. Colonel Morland, commanding a regiment of French chasseurs, was killed in hand-to-hand combat, and Rapp suffered a sword wound to his head. Ignoring the blood blinding him, Rapp rose in his stirrups, shouting over the din, led one final charge. The Russian line broke. Prince Repnin was captured, and the surviving Russian horsemen fled behind Constantine's stubborn infantry guards. Shortly after noon, Napoleon saw that Soult had pierced the Allied center and defeated their right wing. The first part of his plan was successful. The time had come to start the second phase. Napoleon ordered Soult to wheel right, behind the Allied left wing across Goldbach Brook. Devoe, pushed back about a mile west of the Goldbach, had been closely watching the heights of Pratzen. When he saw Soult's two divisions swing around and attack the Allied rear, Devoe ordered his troops to counterattack. The Allied army suddenly found themselves trapped by violent French assaults from the front and the rear. 30,000 soldiers of the Allied left wing were thrown into complete disorder. Devoe's men charged towards the brook from the west, while Soult's troops advanced southward from the Pratzen Plateau. The Russians and Austrians fled, desperately attempting to cross the thin ice of the pond. It was the perfect moment for the final phase of Napoleon's plan. French artillery on the panicked masses. Cannonballs thundered across the ice, shattering it beneath the fleeing troops. In horrifying moments, hundreds of terrified men and horses were swallowed by the icy waters, meeting a grim, tragic end. It had been a day for the ages. Napoleon marked the anniversary of his coronation with a masterpiece of warfare, achieving one of the most flawlessly planned and executed victories in history.